Hey y'all, this is your help video for quiz 2.03. So here's your need to know info. There is a lot of need to know info here. First of all, you need to know that a diameter is the distance all the way across the circle that goes through the center, and a radius is halfway across the circle that goes through the center. And if you take two radii, they would add up to the diameter. So typically we say that the diameter equals 2 times r because 2 times the radius, 2 of those radii would equal the full diameter. Alright, we also need to know what pi is. Pi is an irrational number. It goes on forever and ever. It doesn't end. It doesn't repeat. But we usually approximate it as 3.14. The way you find pi is you take the circumference. The circumference is the distance all the way around the circle. So you can measure that distance all the way around the circle and then divide it by the diameter, and that would give you pi. All right, speaking of circumference, I'm going to jump down here. I just said the circumference is the distance all the way around the circle. The formula for circumference is either 2 pi r or pi times diameter, because remember that diameter equals 2r, 2 radius. So either one of those works. All right, and then over here we have the area of the circle. Area equals pi times radius squared. And then down here, this is kind of just a shorthand way of saying, if you have a polygon inscribed in a circle, the more sides you have in that polygon, the closer it's going to look to an actual circle. And you can actually use this knowledge to derive the formula for area of a circle. But for right now, I just need you to know that the more sides it has, the closer it's going to be to a circle. Okay, so let's tackle the quiz. The first question says, what is the area of a circle with a diameter of 13.2? All right, so we need to start off, we need to know the area formula. So area equals pi times radius squared. But notice here it doesn't give me the radius, it gives me the diameter. So then I also need to know how the radius and the diameter are related. Remember, the radius is half the diameter. So we can take our diameter and we can divide it by 2 in order to get the radius. So if we divide that, our radius is 6.6. And now we have enough information to plug it in. It says use 3.14 for pi and round your final answer to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in what I know. For pi, I'm going to substitute in 3.14. For the radius, I'm going to substitute in 6.6, and then I'm going to square it. From here, it becomes a calculator problem. So 3.14 times 6.6 squared, or you can do times 6.6 twice. And I get that the area equals 136.7784. Now you got to round it correctly. The OHS doesn't take answers that aren't rounded correctly. So it says round to the nearest 100th. Remember, 100 has 2 zeros, so that means I want 2 decimal places. So I find my decimal. I want 2 decimal places, which means that I look at the number behind it. That 8 is going to make that last 7 round up. So my area would be 136.78 units squared. All right, let's tackle the next one. Which explanation can be used to derive the formula for the circumference of a circle? Okay, so this is a pretty wordy problem, so I'm going to show you the picture and a video before we actually look at the words. So in order to do this problem, you first have to know how to get pi. And remember, that was on our need to know information. Pi is the circumference divided by the diameter. So that's how you get pi. Once you know that, you can just basically rearrange it and solve for circumference. So what I mean by that is if we have circumference divided by diameter equals pi, and I want to get the formula for circumference, I need to get rid of d. So I can multiply each side by d. And I would get circumference equals pi times diameter. That's one of your circumference formulas. You could also change that diameter into radius times 2 because that's the same thing. A diameter equals 2 radii. So you could also write it as 2, well, let me just write this out. Pi times 2r, and usually we just rearrange that to say pi equals, circumference equals 2 pi r. But let's go ahead and check out a video too, because it might make a lot more sense when you see this video.
The circumference of a circle is equal to 2 pi r. But where does the formula come from? First, we'll create a circle and its diameter. Now, pi is defined as the ratio of the circumference over the diameter. Next, we'll look at the diameter, and we can see that it is equal to twice the radius, which simplifies to 2r. And so now pi is equal to the circumference over 2r. Finally, solving for the circumference, we can see that it is equal to 2 pi r.
Okay, so that's how they're deriving the formula for circumference of a circle. Now let's look at our answer options. Find the length of the diameter and the length of the circumference of the circle. Divide the length of the circumference by the length of the diameter. That's what's happening over here. Set up an equation to show that the ratio of the circumference to the diameter equals pi. That's exactly what we've got here. Then rearrange the equation by solving for the circumference, which is what we did over here. And then you can substitute 2 times the radius for the diameter. So this is actually our answer. But let's look at why the other ones can't be the answer. It might be a little bit easier if you use elimination, because it is pretty wordy. So the next one says find the length of the radius, then find the circumference. Use the square of the radius. Okay, if we're squaring the radius, we're dealing with area, not circumference. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that one out because that is not dealing with circumference. Let's look at the next one. Find the length of the diameter and double the amount. We don't ever double the diameter, we double the radius. So that one's gone. And the next one, find the length of the radius and the area of the circle. We don't need the area of the circle to figure out circumference. So it is a really wordy problem, but I think you can either use elimination or the videos and such to help you figure it out. Here's the next one. So there's a lot of words going on in this one too, but this is a really easy problem if you remember this simple idea. The more sides you have in your polygon, the closer it's going to become to a circle. All right. So we look over here. It says a regular polygon inscribed in a circle can be used to derive the formula for area of a circle. The polygon can be expressed in terms of area of a triangle. So S is going to be the side length of the polygon. And we can just look it over here. R is going to be the hypotenuse of the right triangle. H is going to be the height of the triangle. And N is going to be the number of sides. Okay? Which statement is true? All right, so this one says as N increases, H approaches R so that RH approaches R squared. The next one says as S increases, H approaches R so that RH approaches R squared. As R increases, same thing, and as H increases, same thing. Well, we want the number of sides to increase to get us as close as possible to the radius squared. And we got to go back up here and just say, okay, which one of these letters stands for number of sides? And in this case, N stands for number of sides. So we want those number of sides to increase in order for it to get closer. So this one is going to be our answer. All right, so the rest of the quiz isn't quite so painful. This one says, what is the area of a circle whose radius is 6? So we just have to remember the area formula. What did I just write? Oh, I was writing area. There we go. The area formula is pi times the radius squared. And we were already given the radius, so we can just plug in what we know. Now, this one doesn't say use 3.14 for pi. At least it doesn't on my version. It might on your version. So you need to read the question carefully and decide whether you're going to plug in 3.14 or whether you're going to leave it as the pi symbol. In this case, since my question doesn't say to use it, I'm going to leave the pi symbol and I'm going to do 6 squared is 36. So I'm going to leave my answer as 36 pi. If yours does say approximate using 3.14, then you would simply go and you'd plug in 3.14 for pi. Let's see what that would equal. And that is 113.04. So it just depends on how the question asks. If it asks you to use 3.14, then by all means you want to plug in 3.14. If it doesn't ask you to do that, then you're going to leave it as the pi symbol, because this is actually a more accurate answer. This is an approximate answer. All right, this one says the circumference of the circle is 5 pi centimeters. What is the area? Okay, so we need to know both of these formulas. We need to know the circumference formula and the area formula. Let's start with circumference. Circumference equals, I'm going to use pi times diameter. It doesn't matter which one we use, but I'm going to say circumference equals pi times diameter. And in this case, I know that the circumference equals 5 pi, so I'm going to plug that in for the letter C. So 5 pi equals pi times diameter. Some of you may already be able to see this without even solving the equation, but I'm going to solve for the diameter, which means I got to get rid of pi. I'm going to divide each side by pi. And the diameter is 5 units long. Now you might be asking yourself, well, how does that help us find the area? Because 5 is not our answer, that's the diameter. Well, if we know the diameter of a circle is 5, then we also know that the radius of the circle is half of that. So the radius here has to be 2.5. So I can take my diameter, I can divide it by 2, and that would give me my radius. And once you know your radius, then you can plug it in to find your area, because the area formula is pi times the radius squared. So to get our area, we could do pi times 2.5 squared. So again, I didn't get my question doesn't say whether to use pi or whether to approximate it, so I'm going to show you both answers because I don't know which one your quiz will ask for. So this is the exact answer. That's leaving pi in there. If it says use 3.14 for pi, you would just substitute that in to get an approximate answer. So my approximate answer for the area, which I'm going to give little squigglies to show that it's not exact, but it's approximately 19.625. So it really just depends on what the question in the OHS asks for, so be careful that you read it carefully. All right, and that's it, y'all. Good luck on your quiz.